Hi, I'm Carrie of Clothing Creations by Carrie, and this is Behind the Thread. Thanks for checking out my video. One of my most favorite things to make are these fabric bowls. So they're a lot like traditional rope bowls that you've probably seen over the last few years. However, I make my own twine and turn that twine into a bowl. It's a lot like a regular rope bowl that you may be familiar with. With this bowl, I had rope in the middle and then I put fabric around the rope to make the bowl. It's a little more rigid, has a little more structure. I can control the pattern inside and what I want it to look like. These bowls still hold their shape. So the way I make these is I start with the bottom, put it into the circle, and then I turn it like you would with a rope bowl to make the shape. So it still holds its shape. It's not quite as rigid as a traditional rope bowl, but this is a great way to use up the scraps you have after quilting a project. So what I found when I was quilting is I would have long strips of fabric left over and maybe, something that I could use in the future for something, but maybe I didn't want to hold on to that fabric. And a lot of times it would end up in the trash. So I found a video on Facebook, and it was a person who was making their own twine, and that was intriguing. So I'm like, well, if I can make my own twine, I can probably make my own rope bowl. And so I gave it a shot, and that's what I do quite regularly now. In the video, there were differences in what I do. So what the person did was they would take two strips of fabric, twist one of them one way, twist one of them the opposite way, and then twist them together. As you can imagine, that was tedious. It was very hard on my hands. I didn't enjoy what I was doing. So I figured out a way to take 1.5-inch strips and turn them into my own balls of twine. Looks like a big ball of yarn. And so I just work my way through and I make my own twine by twisting these fabrics together. But I have some tips for you. So we're going to sit down at the sewing machine and I'm going to talk about some of the things I do in order to put these bowls together. All right, so before we get started, there's a few things you need to know. If you have issues with your hands like arthritis or carpal tunnel with your wrists, this is not going to be the craft for you, but I invite you to watch the video to see how all of this comes together. You also don't want to sit down for long periods of time because this is going to it's a repetitive motion. It's going to have a lot of stress on your hands, and you want to avoid damaging your hands for the long run. So I recommend maybe 10 to 20 minutes at a time, and then take a break and then come back. So this isn't something that you're going to want to sit down and do for a long time all at once. There's a few other things. So you can have strips that are really long. So this is the width of a fabric. And then I also have other strips that are short. And what I'm going to do with the shorter ones, and as I'm putting this together, is I'm going to sew these ends together, and then I'm going to twist the twine. So if you have shorter ones, it's just going to be more sewing. As you're working through this, you want to stagger where those seams are. It's not totally critical, but in order to keep it more consistent with the thickness of the fabric as you're putting your bowl together, you're going to have those seams staggered so that you don't have really bulky points as you're working through. So I'm going to take my long strip and I'm going to take another strip, and I'm going to to get started, I'm going to tie them in a knot on the end. And that's just going to hold them together so that when I get started, it's going to be nice and stable. I'm not fighting with my fabric. So I have my long strip, a shorter strip. I like to sit at my sewing space, and I'm just going to overlap these fabrics maybe 1/4 inch, not really much. You don't want a lot of overlap because you don't want that thickness. So you want it kind of close together. It's not a hard and fast rule. You'll see how it works as you're working through the project. So I'm just going to overlap them a little bit. And I don't have to worry about back stitching. It's just here temporarily. I will back stitch at the end because I'm going to cut it off. But it's really just about holding the fabrics together as I'm sewing. I don't have to sew this. If I'm on the road or I'm on vacation somewhere and I don't have my sewing machine with me, I can just work those ends together. It might be a little bulkier than you want, and it's just a little more tedious to work with. So while I'm home sitting at my machine, I like to go ahead and sew these together while I'm sitting here. It just makes it go a little bit faster. So I am back stitching at the end just out of habit, but you don't have to. So I'm just grabbing some strips and I'm going to sew some of them together. when I get started, I want my strips of fabric to be pretty long because I'm going to work my way around. So it's easier when they're longer as you get started, so that as you're working it around, your ball stays together a little bit better. So I'm going to hold the knot in one hand, and I'm just going to take my fingers and twist it. And then I'm just going to work it around on itself into a ball. You don't want these to be too long, because if you make them really, really long, then as you're twisting this, the ends get twisted the other way. And then when you get there, you have to untwist it, and it can just turn into a big mess. So I do about 2 inches, maybe 2.5 inches at a time, and just roll it on itself. You don't want your fingers to be too sticky, because it is going to kind of glide on your fingers. You also don't want them to be too smooth, because then you can't get a grip. So I guess there's a happy medium somewhere in between, and as you work with it, you'll figure that out. I live in Florida, so we have more of a humid climate. So my hands are probably a little bit stickier naturally just because of the climate than someone who lives in the desert like Arizona, or somewhere dry like New Mexico or Nevada. So if you have trouble with that, I don't know. If you have a lot of lotion, don't put as much. If you maybe need some lotion on your hands, maybe you add some lotion on your hands to give you a little bit of slickness to your texture. So I'm just taking it, twisting it a couple times, and then I'm just putting my thumb, as I'm working on here, I'm twisting it and then just laying it down on the ball and then holding it in place with my thumb. You don't need a death grip on here. You don't want to fatigue your hands faster than you need to. So I still have this much left. I can go a little bit further before I need to add another strip. And those seams that I created, they're just naturally falling in there. They're not really thick. They're just giving me a nice long piece of fabric to work with. So when I'm about here, I could be a little bit closer, but I want to give myself enough room to put this under the sewing machine to add more strips. So I need to hold it in place. So I just grab a pin and I stick it right at the end of where I was working, and it'll go right in there. It's going to hold that together for me. If I don't put that pin in there, when I go to do the next one, it's going to fall apart. So I just, if I don't really, sometimes I'll grab, like I said, I'll grab the same color. So maybe I want to continue with a red. Maybe I want to change it up and I want to do a blue or a green. So this one's right here. And this one does have, it's okay to have these frayed edges from the selvages. So sometimes one side has like a little, you're not going to see it. You're not going to notice it. Nobody's going to know. But sometimes that might be on the edge of your fabric, on the long piece. You can still work with it. It will still be okay. But you might find that you want to cut those frayed edges off before you use your strips. You just might like the way that it looks and feels better. So that's up to you. So I'm going to put these together. And since my yellow one's getting a little bit shorter, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add another yellow one onto this also. And I'm just using the regular straight stitch. If you like longer stitches, you can use longer stitches. My machine, I just turned it on. It's at 2.5 straight stitch, and I didn't change it. Again, it's just really just to hold it there. So it doesn't matter what your stitch length is. It's whatever you like to work with. I can take my pin out. Now, this is a really small piece that I'm working with. So the fatigue on my hands really isn't, I mean, putting it together, yeah, my fingers might have a little bit of stress with working in that small ball. But as it grows, it's going to get kind of heavy. I mean, not really heavy, like you can't hold it, but it is going to put a little more stress on your hands and your shoulders. So what I like to do is, once my bundle gets to a pretty big size, I will use the table to carry that weight for me. So now what I'm going to do, and it's not really heavy right now, but it's going to get there in a couple minutes. So I'm going to let the table carry that weight for me. And so I'm just twisting it and moving that ball around. I have a larger one here. I'm going to pull that one out so it's better to see. So once it gets to about this big, you really want to use the table to help you with what you need to do. So let's go ahead and sew on another strip. So now you can see as I'm working with a larger ball, I'm going to let it sit on the table, and then I can just rotate this ball as I'm adding the twine to it. And if I need to step away or something's going on and I need to stop where I am, I just put that pin right here, right back where I stopped. And then when I come back, my ball is ready for me to work on it. So I hope you found that helpful. I love making these bowls. When I use this fabric, I used to always use a size 80 needle and I didn't have any problems. And then I started using a 90, and for some reason the 90 would break every once in a while. And so I ditched the 90, went back to the 80 for a long time. And then recently I started using a size 100. I think it just penetrates it a little bit easier since it's a thicker, sturdier needle. But you can use what you have. Just a regular Microtech or Universal is fine for these. So I hope that helps. I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you have any questions or you have any feedback, please leave me some comments and I'm happy to answer your questions. It does take a while, so it's not something you're going to sit down and knock out in a quick sitting. So please don't tell me how long it takes. I know it takes a while, but it makes me feel good that I'm not throwing out my scraps that otherwise would end up in the trash. And I enjoy making them and I like the way that they look when I'm done. And when people get them as gifts, they really enjoy them. So thank you, and I hope you have a good one.